I'm Chris Garlock here with Michael Redmond for the Sunday night show. We're doing another AlphaGo versus AlphaGo game tonight. It's going to be game 43. But first, we've been catching up on the news. And Michael, we had talked about last week that competition was starting back up with the professional Go players in Japan, and you've got a couple of exciting news. You're going to be, I don't think, playing this week, but doing refereeing, right?
Yeah, I'll be a ref this coming Thursday. Last week, they did notably start the Hoimbo tournament, so that the title match, so that's got started again. And I don't have any games scheduled yet. They're taking the schedule very slowly because they have to keep social distancing in the playing room and stuff like that. And so it's less games than usual, and it means I'll be waiting a bit longer for my turn to come. But I did get some practice in playing 3 games yesterday. It was just yesterday, at 10 seconds a move.
My goodness. Wow. That's speed go. Wow. How was that?
It was this project that this other professional called Yanagisawa Satoshi, who is a YouTuber. He had this project where he set up this tournament for us. And he's in a group of players called the Nagoya Amigo group. And so that's what they call themselves. So that's amigo as in the Spanish word. So it's,
I was going to ask. So it's okay. So friends. Yeah. So friends. Yeah. Cool.
And so they were the challengers, and they picked 3 9-dan pros to be the old man's group. And so I was in the old man's team, and we actually won the match. Like, it was 3 games for each of us, and various of the younger players challenging us each time. So the younger players only had to play 1 or 2 games, while the old men were actually playing 3 games in a row in the whole day. It was quite
exhausting. The other way around, right?
And so I won by 12.5 points in the first round and 1.5 points in the second round, but I lost the third game by time. And so when you lose by time, you lose 19 points. So I was about 5 points behind, but everyone else did well. So everyone else had a positive record, and we ended up winning by something like 50 so points. So it was a big for the old guys.
Good for the gold. Good for you. Good for the old guys. That's very nice. And this was something you were able to sort of cross promote on your YouTube channel, right?
Oh yeah, they had a link from my YouTube. I think I gained about 50 viewers just in the one day, and I think it was mostly Japanese viewers who were watching that YouTube channel or the live feed. Yeah,
excellent. Well, that's very cool.
Was good.
Exciting. All right, and we have another little. Should we give people a little sneak preview of our new series that we're dropping on Tuesday? Should we mention that?
If you want to, that's a great idea.
All right. Well, we have been working hard the last couple of weeks, taping just about every night, actually. A brand new series. Of course, folks know about our AlphaGo to Zero Volume 1, which focused on the 5 games between Lee Sedol and AlphaGo. And of course, the next phase in the AlphaGo story are the 60 games that dropped in December 16, late December 2016, and early January 2017. Just out of nowhere, sneak attack. And this mysterious player showed up on the internet and just beat everybody 60-0. And fairly soon people realized that this was, because it's playing top players. And so kind of everybody had a crack at it. And you've done some commentaries on some of those games previously. But when we were talking about, we were going to do Volume 2, and I think our original idea was just to sort of pick some of the games, but you said, hey, let's do all 60, but let's do shorter commentaries.
Yeah.
So we have a series which will start this Tuesday, and we're going to do all 60 of the Master games. And we've done, I think, over 20 so far that we've already recorded, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, that's the 20 that I managed to research so far. I'm still working on it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
but I'll be keeping up on it and working through.
Yeah. So these are fun.
Just because Master was so strong and playing against human players did make it possible. Like usually my commentaries tend to run a bit longer than that, but in these games, most of the games I was able to condense the most important parts of the game in the 15 minutes. So that was a good practice for me to be doing shorter videos, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, so look for that. We'll have a story coming out in the e-journal. Stephen can put up the link for the where you can follow that news. But then these will be hosted on Michael's YouTube channel, and then we'll be linking to them on the AGA's channel. But new series, brand new series. So we're going to finish up, but we're coming into the end of the AlphaGo series. This is 43. We have 3 more. Plus, we did pick up. We're going to do the 5 extra games. So
we have 7 more to 50, and then the 5. So it's still 12.
So we're busy. We're keeping busy. All right. So just a couple things, folks. Just a reminder, we are live, of course, so shoot us your questions as we go along in the commentary. Stephen, our producer, will be monitoring those, and then I will try and relay some of those to Michael as we go. And I think that's going to do it. I think, when we've been doing the other one, I always ask you who the victim is against Master. But of course, this is AlphaGo versus AlphaGo. So what's the basic story for this game 43?
You're going to practice your basic life and death this time. And so that's going to be, it's one of the more tricky positions that comes up a lot in actual games. So something that if you don't know it already, you want to pay attention to what happens here, because it's going to be, it's one of the basic, it's called the basic shape because it happens all the time, but actually there's some complications to it.
Of course.
Yeah. But then of course the overall board, in the late middle game, there's going to be a point where I can't believe the way the leading side handles a position. Like it's sort of mind-boggling.
Oh, good. The mind-boggling game. Game 43, the mind-boggling game. I like it. All right.
Got a name for it.
Let's get to it.
Okay, so this is star points and 3-4 points. This actually is played by a lot of human pros now. This kind of opening, where white has ignored black's Kahari and played away to play Kahari also. And this is where black kicked here, already playing a move that, like, this is one of the AI moves that has become very popular because it tends to be forcing sequence. I think that human players at this point would like this kind of move. Obviously, locally, this kind of move is played a lot too. But people don't pincer so much anymore. Just because pincering, when black pincers, white's going to press here. And most of the time, it's not supposed to be so good. Like it's a very subtle difference, but people tend to prefer a move like this. The value of this move is that after white extends and black jumps, the pincer is going to be very strong next. So it's most likely that black gets the initiative here. White's going to play a move on the right side, so black gets the initiative to move to the left side of the board. But I did want to say that the one other variation that I would be thinking of first would be pressing here immediately. And this has been seen in a lot of human professional games. It gets really exciting or sort of crazy when white sort of mimics black and plays a kind of mirror goal here. Because pressing at the 5-4 point here is supposed to be such a valuable move. You do see this kind of thing happening where white is playing something that looks very much like running goal. I've seen a few games at the very top levels where this did actually happen, and something like this could happen. Black could continue crawling or just play the jump. There's a number of choices, of course. Of course, it gets really exciting when one side does this one. The kick here is also a move that can happen in this Joseki. It really confuses things up a lot. So I'll leave that. That wasn't what happened in the game, so I'll leave that there. I'll probably have opportunities to talk about that in some other game. Black started with kicking. and so white extends. So this is very standard. If white did not play that, black would be playing a pincer somewhere around there. Black would probably, something that could actually happen in a game is white could play here, hoping for black to play here, and then white plays something like this. And black would probably counter with some kind of a pincer. The pincer could be here, or it could be a high fourth line pincer. The third line actually works. So this could be expected. So this is perfectly normal. And black invades the 3-3 point. I don't like this move, but everyone plays this move, the early 3-3 point, the direct 3-3 point, as some people call it. And I would be thinking of A or B, which are perfectly okay. Like A or B will give you a good score with computer programs. They're a move that I would find. This one, for instance, like this, I would find it more fun to play a game like this, where I would be building up on the left side of the board, or actually playing the taisha also, just because black does have a one move advantage in that area. And if we look at the adjacent corners in the upper right corner and the lower left corner, that's equal, more to say. So black does have a one move advantage. It's okay for black to start a fight with this. So that would be another option. So I don't like this, but it's AlphaGo. It's AlphaGo's trademark move. So like this, and this is a very, very difficult position to make a choice here. Like I think white wants to play on the left side, but it's really hard to choose what point. Because, well, to start with, if white plays something like this, it's a safe move. This is actually not so bad, but black is going to take the left side in this case. When black plays here, now black is threatening to cut here. This would be really dangerous if black cut here next. So white's probably going to answer like this. And this would be a peaceful variation, but I would like to play with black because black has this nice position on the left side, which is taking away the value of white's Walden. And so I think that's just really efficient. And I would prefer to play with black. I was surprised to see that this did not give black such a great, it was an even game, basically, according to, I think it might have been Katago that I used in this game. I forget. I use both Lila and Katago. When it's a 7.5 point komi, I feel okay with Lila because Lila does use 7.5 points.
Yeah, we did a story on that actually.
Yeah, that was a nice little story.
That was our man Paul Barshaw, and he is on top of it.
Right. Yeah, well, Lila is a program that I really like the moves that it shows me and the general ideas that I get from just watching it. But I like Katago because it can give us a point score as well as the winning percentage. And so, especially when I'm doing Japanese games where it's a 6.5 point komi, that extra point, it really can change the result. It can give you the opposite result if it's using a 7.5 point komi. So I quite often use Katago for the Japanese games.
Right.
So I just went through this variation. So if we say white's not going to do that, then white has to choose a pincer. And the position of the pincer is the question, because if white plays this far, I'd expect black presses once here. And then black has a choice of invading, or black can cut on the fourth line. I think black's going to cut on the fourth line. And get into this fight, it's going to be a relatively complicated fight because white has this weak group on the lower side of the board. And black will have some options to attack like this. So I sort of like this one for black. It just shows that when white makes a wide extension that's marked with A right now, then black can cut at C and take an offensive in the center and the lower side of the board mostly. Another extension that I would be thinking of playing with white would be this one, just one space closer. I was just showing you this pincer. What if white plays? This still gives black room to cut on the fourth line. And so something like this will happen again. And it's a bit slightly different, but this was the projected fight. And black still has things to do with that stone on the left, this stone here. the stone numbered 8.
Yeah.
Black still can do stuff like attaching on top of the white stone. Still has potential to make trouble there. Obviously, black has attacks on the lower side with moves like this, for instance. I still sort of like black because black does have black has options to be attacking white here on both sides. And so again, C is working as an aggressive move. And I sort of like that when it works that way for black. Like if black cuts in C in his attack, then maybe not so good. But when black can look at attacks on both sides like this. So when you look at these variations, it's hard to say white should be trying to get something back on the left side, but it was hard to see what the best extension was. And it turns out that AlphaGo makes a very tight extension. And in this case, the cut is not such a big problem. Like if black cuts now, white would be already settled after this. So white would be able to play on this side and start taking the defensive. I think so. There's a big, in this case, the extension would be in the perfect place to be already connected up. So it would be a lot easier for white. Any way further than that marked zone would leave potential for black to invade, but there's no problem like that in this case.
So it's interesting, Michael, because I mean, even though you're not crazy about the 3-3,
it does create problems for white. Yes.
Right.
So white plays the tight extension, and in the next move, black extended 2. But I would not have played that move. I would have played here. This is such a big point, and it was a big point to start with. But it sort of hits the weak point of this stone because black can be invading somewhere around here next. So like if white plays away and black invades here, I don't know if black wants to do it immediately, but if white plays here, obviously black's going to connect underneath. Or if white plays here, black will always have this move that will connect up one side or the other, like this. So black could do that or play the hane and hanging connection. Black will have no trouble connecting up here and will have counterattacks with the cut or the hane here. So this would be okay for black. So because of this follow-up that black has to attack white, I would really want to play this move. White might jump. Well, I'll leave that variation. It's not so interesting. Well, I could show you, I guess. If white invades here, I would just press again. This in the overall position, it works really nicely for black. It's probably about even. But you know, it's just more fun to play with black for me when black has the outside influence, and we'll have options to be attacking white again with the cut here in some cases, or with the invasion on the right. So black has things to be looking forward to. So I like this variation. So back to the game. Oops, jumped a few moves ahead. Black extended here, and white plays here. And it's a bit awkward for black because black doesn't want to be spending too many stones on this group on the left. Like a safe move would be to play here, for instance, and something like this. Something like this would be a safe way to play, or maybe here. But then, of course, white would be taking the initiative on the upper side. So this would be perfectly playable for white. In the game, black just extended and played away. So this is a big opening point. And it's sort of making me eye of this extension here later, or some move on the upper side. So there's 2 points that black is looking at. And it's a way black can prevent white from jumping into the 3-3 point. So when you compare it to the move that I was suggesting before, the move in which black immediately extends, this move does have the virtue that it's making it difficult for white to jump into the 3-3 point. So if the direct 3-3 invasions are annoying you, this is a move that you can use to avoid that.
Cool.
So white invades the left side. Yeah. So what does black do about this? This is a problem.
Yeah, I hope you don't have a problem for me because I was just looking at that and wondering that.
Yeah. Well, there's really no local move that's really that good. Actually, Leela was suggesting that black just play away.
Oh,
Like
huh.
And that's the biggest opening point. Like after black plays here, extending here next is still a big point, or black can back up here and get a very nice position in the upper right. So it's of course, for the time being, it's going to be one of these 2 points, and then finally the third point would be P17. So there's various points that every move that black plays in the upper right area is going to take that whole area ahead. One move, it's going to be an important move in creating that structure, because if white plays a similar move, for instance, if white plays the same place, let's just have black play something like this and white play here, then you can see now it's a white structure. So that's really a very important opening move just to play here. And every move black adds to that in the upper right is very significant. It's going to be a significant difference in the size of that black area. So as far as an opening point is concerned, it's really very effective. Of course, the drawback is that white gets to add a stone, maybe something like this to the left side. And, black will have the option of just sacrificing everything, or how is black supposed to deal with that? It gets more, if black is going to try to save something, it gets more and more difficult and complicated every time white adds a move. So it is a position where I would not be happy to play with black.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask actually. The D14 seems like a very nice, slow, patient move. So and just a reminder to our viewers, we are live. So if you've got questions at the opening, and especially the AlphaGo openings are very, very challenging. So if you have any questions here, feel free to jump in. But yeah, so I have to say that I agree. I mean, I'm not quite understanding blacks, taking these sort of positions on the left and then sort of switched off to the right. But
right. So the computer score might be okay for it's not moved around so much. So it might be okay for black, but it's really going to be difficult. It would be difficult for me to continue playing as the black player, to continue playing what I think of as good moves. So that really takes me back to the point where white has extended here, and I did not want to play this move. So I would have been able to. The least I can say is that if I had played this way, then I would feel confident that I can continue to play good moves. And I think that's really important thing to focus on when you're studying with computer programs, because they're going to take you into an opening and into a game that you don't understand or you don't feel happy about. Sometimes it's better for you to choose the move that you like anyway, and just be aware that the computer has different ideas.
Yeah.
Unless you really want to get the experience of playing that strange game. So black pushed here.
You have been warned.
When black pushes here, it becomes extremely sharp. So just to take it back a few moves, white invaded, black played an attachment, and this is a probe. It seems okay to play. White pulls back, and black pushed here. This is an extremely sharp move. It's very dangerous. And I don't know what AlphaGo, you might say, planned to do. For instance, if white had played this way, to cut black off, and then extend it in the center, it just looks very scary for black. I don't really see how this is supposed to work. Black can play here, and white crawls. When this happens, there are some weaknesses in white's position, like at black A and B. But just to go through them immediately, like if black plays here, in this case, white could just take the one stone on the outside. And when white plays here, black's still not going to have a living shape. So black does need one more stone to live on the side. And these stones in the center are not very happy either. So this looks perfectly good for white. Another move that is potentially dangerous to white would be the double hane. The double hane, like if white cuts on the third line, it's going to work. But white's going to cut on the fourth line. And then white has 3 liberties, black has 3 liberties. But white can actually, for instance, like taking in the swan's nest would be bad because white would win. I mean, black would win. But white can fill a liberty here. And while black tries to escape, white can capture these 3 stones. So that would just be, black would have to save this side, and white would just finish off these 3 stones. It doesn't look good for black.
Folks are wondering, Michael, about attaching underneath at B3 for black.
B13.
I'm sorry, B13, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's try it with this move. I think white actually has a choice of curling around on the second line or immediately cutting. And both of them work to an extent, but even curling around here, and then later on white could cut here. Or if, yeah, so this, or even white could play here and then cut. That works too. That's the easiest way to win so this would just be a win for white. So white can connect there, and we have this weak group on the outside for black. And I don't really like this for black. So actually, the local move that I like better for black, if black's gonna, it doesn't really work yet. Like I might try starting with something like this, and something like this. Now this would work. But white's not going to allow that. White's going to play the tardy underneath. And we get into a completely different. In this variation, you can see that white is, not only is the corner territory pretty big, but white's starting to think of drawing a line like this to make a big moyo. Like black wants to extend on the upper side, but black also wants to play somewhere around here to stop that. But it looks a bit troublesome for black. It's dangerous. Otherwise, if black plays something like this, you can see that white's going to be playing something on the outside. And the left side of the board is going to get really big. So although attaching on the second line there is a tesuji, it's sort of hard to make it work. Like I could try making it work like this, but usually, attaching there and here and then trying to make it work it's less likely to succeed than most games, I think. I mean, I would feel that it was dangerous. Black could have jumped out here, and then sort of to see, depending on how white plays, black could be thinking of sacrificing this area on a relatively small scale and just moving out with that Kakari stone. This is something we've seen, the kind of play that we would used to call this heavy, but it's something we see a lot now that people are studying with computer programs. I think this is the kind of move that you would expect to see with a computer program. It's sort of counterintuitive because it looks so heavy, but black's just going to focus on saving this group. And when black plays there, black does have a lot of potential forcing moves, pushing on the 5th line, which is something that computers are perfectly happy to do. And if black does get a lot of pushing moves there, it will give black some potential to have an initiative in the fight on the left side. So this is maybe this is an option. Yeah, this move was sort of, I didn't really know what black was going to do against this. And this looks like it's a dangerous fight for black. But in the game, but of course the issues I was talking about, with the double hane at B, maybe black's going to play something like this and hope to play that double hane later. I don't really see how it's going to work for black, but maybe there's some potential there. In any case, AlphaGo as white did not go into this variation, so it saw some kind of a danger, which has to do with this. And it was sort of difficult to research it because I think that variation is probably good for white anyway. But white played it safe by playing this exchange first. And with this exchange, obviously, it's going to make a big difference. Like if black plays something like that, it's going to make a big difference in the safety of white's stones when white does something like this. So white's going to be a lot more safe in this variation. And there's going to be no counterplay for black. So black plays away, protects the side. And now we're going to get the life and death problem I'm going to have you solve, Chris. So you have to pay attention here.
All right. All right.
Okay, so black's, we're going to assume that this is just bad, and it probably is, giving white the whole corner like this. Okay. So black has to save the corner. Black has a choice between this move and this move. So we're going to look at this move first. If black plays here and white plays here, now what's going to happen to the corner later? White has a move in the corner. So we'll assume some move like on the outside for black. How can white attack this black group in the corner? And this is really relatively easy if we don't have this black stone here. But this black stone, in a way you could say it gets in the way and it makes it harder to see the correct move.
Right. I'm looking at you. The thing that springs to mind is D1, of course. That's my instinctive, the first thing I would take a look at.
Middle of free stone shape move, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
here.
Just for viewers, the oftentimes what you want to look at is where might black play to live right away.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a great shape.
Yeah. And then obviously got to extend up or pull back, I guess, to I think C1.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my helpers here are saying. Mm-hmm. Somebody wants to play Tengen. I think they're not paying attention worse than me. We have a local problem here, folks. Well, I'm just trying to see.
It's not working, actually.
Yeah, it's not, is it? Yeah, I want to play two places at once.
Black plays here. And so white play two moves. So it was actually a great shape move, but it didn't work.
Yeah, now you got me eye for the two eyes. All right. Well, but it's always good, just and working through the variations, it's always good to eliminate the obvious
it's a good
one
move
first.
To start with. Among the wrong answers, this was the best, basically the best move. It was the shape move. It was a good try. Oh, sorry. Back to this variation. Do you want to try again, or shall I go to the answer?
Well, the next one I was going to try was C1.
C1. That's here?
Yeah.
Well, in this case, black is going to play, that's also a good try, but black's going to play here. And for a moment, it looks like a ko, but black's just going to squash it like this. And it's the same, quite similar to the previous. So it didn't work.
Right. It's one of those resilient shapes, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It looks resilient. And it's just like, you would probably know what to do if this stone was not on the board.
Well, now I'm going to go, what about B1?
There you go. That's the correct answer. So B1. Oh, sorry, I'm still in your variation. B1. And even though there's this black stone here, you can see that white can throw in the corner. So if black connects here, white can throw in the starter ko.
Nice.
And if black plays here,
then you poke out from inside, right?
Poke out from inside.
D2?
D2 does not work. D2 is just connecting.
Oh, just D1 then.
D1 is correct, yes. So D1, that's an Atari. And if black connects or takes the one stone, white just cuts here.
Nice. Oh, that's so cool.
So
I love those kind of problems. Very cool. Oh, that's
each black
elegant.
would play a ko. So this would be a ko, which would be relatively good for white because when white wins, white's going to take all those black stones off the board.
Wow, nice problem.
Yeah. So
That's one of
that
those.
might
One
be
of
the ko
those
that was played. Actually, black would, in an actual game, black would probably choose this ko because in this ko, when white wins the ko, there's going to still be some black stones on the board. And so sometimes black could set up, like if black plays moves like this, black would still have some forcing moves from outside.
nice.
So black would probably choose this ko, but in any case, it's going to be a ko. So very good. Actually, black chose, so in the game, black played here. So we get to do this one too. This is also a basic opening, basic.
And it's not over.
It's not over. You still have one more test.
So now
This is relatively straightforward.
B1 probably doesn't work now.
Probably doesn't work now.
What about just the what about just the Hane? Is this one of those death in the Hane problems?
The Hane would be F1, but black makes two eyes with this.
Yeah. Too easy. Well, then D1 looks promising.
You're getting too fancy.
I know, right?
Yeah. It's very simple, actually. It's very straightforward. White just throws in.
Oh, of course.
And if
Yes.
black plays here, why don't you try this one? There's a key point left.
And
Now
now,
white key point.
yeah, now D1, right?
Nope, still not D1. That's still
No,
here.
it's C1. It's C1. I'd like to C1. I thought maybe didn't know. It's C1. It's C1.
In this case, black does get an eye, but does not have any liberties. So black cannot play the Atari here because black would be putting himself in Atari. And so there's no way for black to fill any liberties. And eventually, you can imagine that if white wanted to, white would be able to capture from this side. Although it's a code, there's no way that black can, there's nothing that black can do locally. So it's like it's a temporary Seki-like situation where white will eventually have the option to capture the black stones. So it's just dead.
Oh my God! But that's the kind of thing that you would really hate to have pop up, like towards the end of the game when you're in time trouble.
And this is dead too. So this is dead. Yeah, right. You have it really helps to know this because this is a kind of shape that occurs after. Actually, there's multiple josekis that will end up with this shape as a potential result. So it's quite a common shape. Just to go back into it, to give you black's correct move, the correct local move, if black is going to play, is to play here, and white will capture the stone, and black can make an eye here. And in actual practice, if it was this game position, white would then play away because white's already gained a few points. But eventually, in the local position, white will be throwing in here, and it's going to be a two-step ko. So black has to win the ko and connect, but white also has to play three moves. Like white has to win this ko also. And then finally we'll kill the black. So it does take a double step ko, a lot of moves for white to kill this black group. And I think one might say the idea, it's sort of strange to be talking about ideas with AlphaGo, but the idea here is that white's going to stop at this point where black only has two eyes in a very small territory. Whereas if white had done nothing, then black would have had, if black connects at that point, then black has something like 7 points. So it's a big difference in territory. So white was threatening to kill the black group. And if black answered like this, white would have stopped probably at this point, having reduced black to something like 3 points. Or actually, if you count the stone that white took, it's actually smaller than that. So it's almost zero. And then white would return to the side here. So that was the idea. So that's the explanation of the local tsumego. And among the what we call basic tsumego life and death problems, there were a lot of complications to it. But it is something that's worth sort of researching and learning because it happens a lot in real games. It will happen this was a 3-3-point variation of the joseki. So that's one example. There are a number of 3-4-point josekis that end up in a similar shape. So it's quite common.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's one of those variations, like when I had black going down here, this was one of the variations of what we call the comb shape, where black has this 6-point shape here,
Right.
and is trying to make it. And when black plays this point, it's what we call the comb. When you imagine black stones at these 2 points, maybe I should try doing that with black stones, just to demonstrate. When this shape here is called the comb shape, because actually there's a lot of Japanese combs that are sort of traditional Japanese comb shape is sort of like this. It's a very simple shape. Okay, back to the game. So so black played here and white threw in here after playing one hane. And strangely enough, black just ignored the corner. Like it's just AlphaGo. Go ahead and kill it. And so white kills it.
Wow.
And so now this is just dead. In fact, black could play 2 moves and it would still be dead. There's no way for it to live. Actually, I think this was pretty big, and at this point, white has a lead. And so it's sort of a strange thing to happen. It's very close, obviously, but I sort of like this I would be happy with white. White has such a big territory here. A lot of black stones inside that white territory.
Yeah.
But it's not as if it's a big difference in the overall territory, because black does have this nice little territory here. It's pretty close, but I would prefer to play with white. So black plays here. This is forcing enough. If black connects on the 3rd line, it would be troublesome. So white pushes through and slides here. Now this black group is going to be very difficult for white to attack strongly, but white does play once to take away size. Played here. And black bumped against white. So this is a nice little problem that was sort of hard for me to figure out. But basically, it's going to be very difficult for white to take away black's eyes. And also, there's the fact that this large nice move shape here is a bit weak. So, for instance, let's see, white played away. I made a variation for it here. This would be white's local strongest move, bumping against the black stones here. Black has a number of ways to deal with that. Even if black crawls in the corner, at this point, black will have enough room to live. So for instance, if black does something like this, even if black just goes 1 step at a time, there's no way white's going to be killing this black group. Black has plenty of eyes. But actually a more dangerous move for black would be to play the empty triangle here. And this also can sometimes help black make eyes when black plays this point later. But it's more dangerous than that, because white's getting cut off all over the place. Like if white plays here, black can just push through and cut. And it's hard to say who's attacking here, because black's going to have no trouble living. Black has plenty of eyes with a move here that black can play, and of course the eye here. And white's not alive yet on the upper side. White needs 1 more move to make a living shape there. And this white group is sort of pressed against the black group. The black group, for the time being, is alive on the left side there. So actually, black probably has more potential to attack than white does. It's locally is a dangerous shape for white. And it just goes back to the fact that in this position where black has bumped against white here, I think the thing you have to focus on is the fact that this black group is so solid. And so any kind of fight in the area is going to be dangerous for white. And it's also the fact that these 2 stones are a bit too far away for white. These 2 stones, the large nice move, they give black some room. So white doesn't do anything. White just plays 1. And, you know, I love the way that computer programs play away like this.
Yeah.
And there's no logical reason for white to have played this move first that I can understand. But it's sort of like hand slate or something. It's just
Really?
sort of playing around. This move that white has just played here is going to be forcing whenever white plays it, because when white plays here, now black has to connect underneath.
Right.
So I don't really get the order of the moves, but it is sort of fun to see it happen in this order. And white jumps here. So if we look at the overall position, black has, I'd say it's more than 15 points, but less than 20 points here. Black has about 10 points here. And if we look at white's territory, white has something like 20 points in this area. White has about 15 points here. So if we just look at those two territories each, that's 35 for white and something like 25 for black. So that's a 10-point advantage for white.
Mm-hmm.
And so the undecided areas are on the upper side. White has this small area, which is just a few points so far. Black needs 10 points plus Comey. So if black could find some way to connect up these two groups to get this side territory, then black would have enough territory to call this a one game.
Okay.
Otherwise, if these two groups are split into two, it's going to be very close. But I don't really see black getting 10 points plus Comey if these are split up into two, because there would be white stones in between. So the move that I intuitively want to play at first would be this move. Just give me the side kind of idea.
Right.
And if white plays here, oh, sorry, that was a misclick. If white plays here and here, this would be sort of like a very natural looking shape move. Black would just go ahead and take the side territory. Actually, black might do it this way. And the corner territory. And they would connect up to be close to 30 points, like more than 25 points, less than 30 points. And that would be enough to give black a lead in territory. In this case, I would say it's still very close, but I think black would have chances to give Comey. The problem is that when black does this, this is the perfect timing for white to play this attachment against the corner. And it just doesn't work for black. The corner is big enough that black has to answer that. And white's just going to play these forcing moves and then move out. And it's so obvious. I think I had this from Leela, but once it was shown to me, it was so obvious that white could play that exchange. And it's something that I could have folded into in a game. I could have played that move for black in a game just without thinking about it. But this would it would be a hopeless position for black. You can see that black's territory is really small in this variation. Mm-hmm. Black has something like a total of about 15 points. I think black would barely be able to win before Comey. So it would be very, very difficult to give Comey in this position.
Yeah.
So black plays this move. So it's I guess it's a correct assessment of the situation that black did not try to connect up with wedge at A. But it means that white's going to be able to split the two black groups. So white starts by pushing here.
Can I just ask a quick question? Why is the game move better than some? I'd be inclined to try and get a little bit more with like P17.
P17. That's a good question, but it's well, in this case, white would cover here, and there's still the 3 point, so black would have to continue with this. And the corner is pretty much safe, although there's still going to be an annoying play on the second line here at S16. But the real problem is that black is just sort of punching himself in the face on the left side. this group here, it's being damaged a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's not so profitable for black to be doing that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I like this move. The corner, obviously, this area, if black is just going to is not going to be able to connect up the whole area, then the corner is definitely important. It is the largest area. It's about 15 points. And white pushes instead of covering on the second. I would be thinking of covering here also, but I think black is just going to play something like this. And black has a pretty good shape on the left. So white instead pushed. Black wedges now. A nice order of moves here. And white connects. Covers here. It's a very, okay, yeah, this is where it gets exciting. So at this point, it's still difficult for black to connect underneath because whenever black plays here, white's going to wedge here. So it's just not really going to work for black to connect underneath. And it's something that if you're playing this game, you don't really want to try it because it's going to be damaging to the corner. Actually, white might just connect it. And if you do this, it's just going to get worse and worse. This is something that you see Q players do sometimes, but it's just going to be killing the black group. It's a complete collapse here.
Yeah.
Even if this happens.
Shredded.
Yeah, that's just too bad. So it's better for black to leave it for the time being. And black peeps here. At this point, I think white has a small lead. But white plays very aggressively, so it's not giving up anything. And with the fact that this black group is not 100% alive, I guess it's okay for white to be playing aggressively here. But there are potentially a lot of white groups that could get into trouble too. Like this group is not 100% alive yet. And when black cuts here, we see a lot of groups that could get into danger. So it's a bit of a complicated position here. And white covers. So white is dealing with the group in the upper left and looking at the wedge at A. So if black just plays away somewhere, white can wedge here and cut black off. So this would be bad for black because this group on the outside is in danger too. So black has two groups to deal with, the two groups, this one and that one, and it would be a bit dangerous for black. So black handled that by playing underneath, peeped once, okay. Peeped once and then played the honey underneath. So that's getting rid of the wedge at A, because if white wedges now, let's do that with stones. And then black can play here and have an eye there on the side too. So that would be okay for black. And white did not do that, but simply protected the corner. So white has to protect the corner group, otherwise it's not going to be alive. So this was kind of a forced sequence. With this hanging connection, now white has a living shape here. And the focus switches to the outside. Black's group here is still not 100% alive. It only has, if white plays first, it's going to have one eye. But for the time being, it's sort of out in the center, so it's okay. These two black stones are really weak. But when they start moving out, white has to be careful.
Can you just show folks why there's only one eye if white moves first? I think it's pretty obvious.
White has a number of ways to reduce it to one eye. Like white could play here and here. And that would be reducing this to one eye. And also looking at the next attack against the corner here.
Right. Somebody was also wondering, and this may be related as well at some point, is there an attachment at S14 for white as well?
S14?
Yeah, eventually for white.
Here? When you say S14, do you mean this point?
The attachment, yeah. Is there any funny business for white there eventually?
Well, it's not going to work very well. Like, for the time being, white's too busy on the outside, and if white gets strong enough, then black could just cover on here. So the real threat is this kind of threat is much more dangerous where white is looking at the attachment at R18.
Right.
Otherwise, white could also kill it with this move, in which case black has to save 4 stone. Something like this might happen. The drawback being that these stones on the outside, a liberty is being filled. It's not as if they're going to die immediately, but white does have to be careful of the remaining liberties because of a potential wedge here. Here. It doesn't quite work yet for black, but white does have to be careful of that. And the advantage for white, on the other hand, is that white can play here, and if black makes an eye, white can play here, threatening a ko. So if white has an abundance of ko threats, this would be an option.
Wow.
It all depends on the ko threats, though. You have to read out you have to think of the trade. If you look at this game, I don't think white really has an abundance of ko threats. And when white does play this ko, it's going to be a lot of profit for black when black opens up a hole there. That would be a lot of profit for black. So actually, it's a dangerous ko for white, too. So I think the more likely variation is where white plays this hane and looks at the attachment at the mark point. But again, in this position, white, for the time being, white has to worry about the outside first. So white plays here. And so white, with this move, white is connecting up here in a way that, like if black plays this way, white can jump and have a kind of a connection here. So white's starting to connect up here. And at the same time, white is looking at the weak point in the black position here. So looking to push through and cut there. And when black plays here, now the black group is pretty much alive. We're going to still see some things happening, but it's pretty much alive. So white plays here and connects and adds a stone. So this makes sense to me perfectly. So we can see in the fight on the upper side, black's corner has shrunk just a little bit. It's about 10 points now, and black has a few points here. And if we look at the overall position, so that means black has slightly more than 40 points, and white has about 40 points also. So it's close on the board, close before Komi, if we look at the overall position. So all white has to do is keep the status quo. If we look at the center position, if white can somehow capture these stones, it's just going to be really good for white. So for instance, if black plays the cut here, in this case, white's just going to sacrifice the one stone. Even if white just plays something like this, we can see that the black group on the right is going to be in trouble here. So in this case, white would just capture those 2 or 3 stones. And although this is a ponnuki, in this game, it's not really, like they say, ponnukis are 30 points. In this game, it's just controlling that relatively small area. It's probably somewhere in the vicinity of 10 point worth. Whereas capturing those 3 black stones on the right side is going to be pretty decisive. So black plays here. Now, like I've been saying, I think white has a slight advantage. And so this is the move where I had a lot of trouble understanding what white is trying to do. Because when I say white has an advantage, I sort of want to play here and just keep the advantage. So this is the move that I found hard to believe. I mean, not this move, but the move that was actually played. So do you want to try to guess how AlphaGo answered this attachment?
I don't even know what's going on.
Well, the big picture is that black is trying to find some way to settle this group in the center.
Sure.
So at the very least, black wants to move out with that group and erase the whole area. And then hopefully black wants to get a counterattack on this white group on the left. And if black can somehow push it against this strong position that black has on the left side of the board, then black does have some potential to attack that white group. So that's the idea for black. At this point in the game, it's hard to see whether black will be attacking white or not.
I mean, something like K11 is just too direct, I think.
K11. K11. That's a direct move. It's probably not so bad. It's in the right area. But as I was saying, I would just play here and keep the position. Like black cutting here is not going to work. White just continues playing in the center, even this way. And now black's going to be really in trouble.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, so like if black plays something on the outside,
maybe what about
white
thinking that or maybe even Tengen. Is Tengen too far? Is that a little too?
Black's connection is really weak. Like this white stone here is preparing to cut black off. Black has to cover that fairly solidly in order to be connected. I could project something like this. It's just good enough for white. I like white in this variation.
Yeah.
And white is attacking still. White has enough territory to win the game. So this is the way that I would be going about trying to finish off this game where I think white has a slight advantage. But not AlphaGo. AlphaGo played here, and black's going to trash the whole right side, and it's going to be hard to tell what's going on, because when black gets the right side and takes that away from white, that's going to change the balance of territory. And it nullifies everything that I've been saying about what the balance of territory was.
But, yeah, I
So you can see I was surprised.
Yeah.
And now white's going to sacrifice these stones. More and more. It's going to be exciting. So white cuts here and extends. This is actually, so you can see that white is making a counterattack in the center, but it's giving up a huge amount of territory. Like white's giving up something close to 30 points on the right side, or it potentially is. Actually, when white plays here, it's a lot smaller. It may be about 15, 20 points that white is losing. So black escapes in the center too. And, this center group is going to survive. But white is going to get the points that white gave away on the right side. White is going to get them back in bits and pieces. And we're going to see that this works in its own way. So black jumps out here. When white plays here, the whole connection, these stones out to the center, the connection is not very solid. Like white can at any point play a move at M12, that is, this mark point, and capture some of the black stones.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or white has a number of ways to go about it. But black, for the time being, black can afford to sacrifice those two stones because black seems to be getting a lot of potential territory in this area, which was a white territory. So I'll admit that at this point, it's sort of hard for me to calculate how this is working for white. But actually, when white plays here, this is part of white's plan, you might say, white's double attack, because this is, again, threatening. This move comes back, the wedge here, and black is going to be losing some of his eye space. And also, a white move, for instance, even just the hane here, this would be a huge move attacking the black corner. So, for instance, if black answers, in the game black covered here, and if, let's say black puts another stone in on this side, then black would have a completely living shape. But even if white just takes that, and because black has a peep here, black can, a peep at this point, black can escape with the black stone next. So I'll say white just captures the one stone and black lives. Even this would be very painful for black. Black's corner territory is reduced to something like 4 points. So it's very painful for black. Black has a headache when white plays here too, because if black covers, then white's going to capture this stone too. So this kind of territory, it's a maximum of 5 points, and if white plays a hane here, it's going to be 3 points. So I'd call it close to 4 points. So that's pretty painful. When in the game black plays here, this is closer to 10 points. So that's a big difference. But the payoff for white is that white can play here, and so black has to worry about his eyes at A. If black plays at A, he'll be alive. If white plays at A, well, for the time being, black has that hanging connection at B. So there is that added value. You can see that all of the black territories on the upper side have become fairly small. And then white returns to the center, and black plays here. This is getting to be big, but white still has ideas for a double attack here. So white goes about it very cleverly, starting with this exchange, and then, and then with this attachment. With this attachment, white is threatening to escape, obviously, and when black plays here, white's just curling around to make the split black off. So black's center group has been isolated, and white is on the long run, white is setting up a fight to capture, a race to capture on the left, in the lower right area. And because black has to deal with this group in the center, black will not have time. For instance, black doesn't really have time to be playing moves like this and getting the center into even more trouble. Like if black did that, it would just be coming back, sort of rebounding in the lower right area, with black filling his own liberty. So like if black is consistent and pushes through here, then the center will die on a large scale. So black doesn't really have any time to be fighting in the lower right area. Black has to be pretty passive in the lower right area and has to add stones to the group in the center. So you can see that in a way white's strategy seems to be working, but it's really it would be very, very difficult for me to actually make this work in a game, because you have to remember that the white group is not alive either. White has to remember that this group is not.
I know.
But white, AlphaGo is used to handling that, I guess. So now black has started to make some eye shape in the center, and white has started to make a fight to capture here. At this point, if black plays next, black has a one-move advantage in the lower right.
I thought he
so
was
if black plays first, that is. Black any move that black plays, like black could play, for instance, black could play somewhere around here. Black will win by one move. Wherever black plays, black just has to fill a liberty, basically.
Okay.
But white will be getting back some points, for instance, with a forcing move here, and can still return to the fight in the center, and white will be on the offensive in the center. So although black got this whole group, when it's a fight to capture, it's less than 20 points. It's more like 16, maybe something like 15-point gain for black. And white was getting some extra points, reducing black's territories in the upper right, and will be getting some points here. And it adds up to be, I think it's just an even trade. It's not even that white gained anything. When you compare it to the much more simple game that I wanted to play when black played this attachment here, and white just extending, that would have been so much easier for me to execute. And I think that the end result here, if we count it up, is quite similar in the difference in territory. But no, AlphaGo had to do it this way. So black plays on the outside. For the time being, this white group the white group in the center is in danger. So white bumps against black. But black does have to return if black plays away. So white has this forcing move at 2 that is threatening black on the upper side. And then white can start, I think this is going to be a ko. Yeah, this is going to be a ko on the right side. If white plays here and here, there's no way that black can avoid a ko. Like this, for instance, this way. And it's going to be a ko.
Wow.
So a ko would be, obviously, it would be dangerous for black. In this game, now white has ko threats in the upper right corner. So this ko is actually dangerous. There was a point in this game where black had an advantage in ko threats, but I don't think that's true anymore. So black had to put that stone in. And finally, the game is going to calm down a little bit. So white plays here. Now white's alive in the center. Black's alive in the center when black plays here. And black has to live on the upper side. And they're just, white's just establishing the forcing moves here. White plays this exchange. And this point. This game actually went into a normal endgame. So no surprises, apart from the fact that white gave a few points away. I think white actually has a fairly sizable lead at this point.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that if you look at black's profit here, black started off with, in the lower right corner, black started off with a position here that was about 15 points to start with. So if we start with that assumption, this is more like 27 points, so 28 points. So maybe less than 15 points that black has gained here. in this immediate area, in this area. So black gained almost 15 points here, but elsewhere, like this position on the upper side where black is being reduced to just 2 eyes, and this corner, it still looks like it's going to be reduced a little bit more, so it's not a very big territory. And then if we look at this area, we can see that white has got a good deal of territory. It's just all of these various parts in the territory where white is picking up a few points here and there, which made it worthwhile. So in the end result, this move, it worked quite well for white. But I still would hesitate to play that in my game. Like I understand that it's a big point covering at R13, but giving up the whole right side is something that I would find hard to do.
Yeah, that's. I mean, there's like no margin there. I mean, everything has to go exactly right.
It has to be executed perfectly. Yeah, that's AlphaGo for you. AlphaGo can do that.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And human players make mistakes all the time. So it's basically in a position like that. We try to play a game where a relatively minor mistake will not lose the game for us.
Right.
I can afford to make a mistake that a relatively minor mistake. Whereas in this variation, like the execution of that squeeze that white did in the lower right area and the fight in the center, it has to be perfect.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, responding there seems like nothing wrong with just the extend that was it Q8.
Right.
On the other hand, I guess one of the things I would say is that and you do see this obviously with pros, the idea of sacrificing something and then just making your opponent pay for capturing whatever
it is a very aggressive move. Like it's taking a big point where white is threatening to play a honey here next and putting more pressure on black. So it's what we would usually call fighting spirit. Although, the younger players, when they studied with computers, they don't use that phrase so much as older players. It's just something we use when white's playing the most offensive move. And putting pressure on the opponent, but it's something we say in a position when we play a strong move, but we cannot really calculate it. So when a human plays that kind of move, is with the feeling that backing off would be dangerous in itself, and it would probably be giving up a point or so.
Right.
Just a point or so, probably.
Wow. Great game, really. I'm with you. That play in the middle there, very, very complicated, very hard to understand, and but as always, Michael, thank you for taking the time to suss it out and bring it back to us. I'm really always so pleased, and I can see folks have really enjoyed that as well. So I'm glad you all enjoyed that. Just a reminder, if you like that, then check out Michael's YouTube channel and his Twitter feed. He's got lots of stuff. I imagine as he starts to get more involved with his professional duties, he may not be able to put quite as much out there. But again, we do have our new. I think we're calling, it's going to be for volume 2 of the AlphaGo to Zero, but I think we're calling the series AlphaGo versus the World. Is that what we came up with? I guess we came up
familiar? With. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's 60 videos.
60 videos.
I think it's going to be putting them out for about 6 months now, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's something that'll keep me busy.
Yeah. And it'll be cool for you folks, too, because they're in bite-sized chunks. I think the longest one, the first one's a little bit longer because we do some introductions. But after that, I think they all run anywhere from like 12 to 15 minutes in that range. So even in our short attention span culture, I think folks can do that. So, but you all have hung in here for the whole hour and 15 minutes. So good for you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you all for watching. Thanks, of course, to our producer, Stephen Hu, knocking it out as always. And also thanks, of course, to the American Go Association, usgo.org. Lots of wonderful, wonderful stuff there, including the ability to join and support as well. So everybody stay safe out there. Keep the life and death on the board. And we will see you next Sunday. All right. Take care, folks.